This mountain road is deserted. It's perfect. Hardly any cars are passing through. My mother-in-law, Jennifer, and my sister-in-law, Sarah, were whispering something to each other. After driving deep into the mountains, Sarah glanced around and parked the car. It was a place where not a single person could be seen, and no cars passed by. Well, we're here. The air is so fresh. Let's take a walk. Yes, that sounds good. Viola, get out of the car. I was prompted by the two of them to get out, but for some reason, Jennifer and Sarah remained inside. Aren't you getting out? When I turned back to ask, they were grinning mischievously from inside the car. All right, mission accomplished. We drove you, a stranger, all the way here, so be grateful. From here, you're on your own. There's no signal out here in the mountains, so you can't call for help. Walking back 50 miles won't be easy. How long do you think it'll take? With that, they left me behind and started driving down the mountain road. Is that really why they invited me here? I can't believe it. I was stunned. Fine, have it your way. If it's come to this, I'll do things my way too. For reasons I won't disclose, I know this area very well. With that, I set off towards a place I hadn't been in a long time, determined to teach Jennifer and Sarah a lesson for their rotten behavior. My name is Viola. After graduating from college, I worked at a car dealership. The owner of the dealership, Jimmy, pursued me relentlessly until we eventually got married. Jimmy and I had a 12-year age gap. He seemed completely infatuated with me, the younger woman. After we got married, my husband, Jimmy, made a request. Viola, I'm the owner here, right? Having my wife work doesn't look good for my image as a car dealer. So I'm sorry, but could you become a housewife? All right, I understand. I agreed to Jimmy's request and became a housewife. For a while, we enjoyed our time together as a married couple. But 3 months after I started living with Jimmy, Jennifer and Sarah suddenly barged into the house we were living in. Sarah was single and managed a nightclub. Both of them were self-centered and had a laid-back attitude, and I found them a bit difficult to be around. Oh, what a lovely house. It's such a big, nice place for just the two of you. Seems like a waste. Exactly. With such a big house, having the two of us move in wouldn't be a big deal. I felt confused by their conversation. Wait, are you two planning to live here with us? Honestly, I found it troublesome and wanted to refuse. But as a wife, I couldn't say anything. Hey Jimmy, it looks like Jennifer and Sarah want to live with us in this house. It's a problem, so please do something about it. I tried to get Jimmy to send them away, but it seemed like he couldn't stand up to them. Come on now, it's fine. Like they said, it's a big house. Having them move in won't be a problem. He tried to calm me down. What? How could you? That's how it is, so I'm counting on you, Viola. And just like that, I ended up living with Jennifer and Sarah. I don't like this. It might be fine for Jimmy because they're family, but it's stressful for me. My worries turned out to be right, and the peaceful days of our marriage were gradually disrupted by them. I usually drove a luxury car. When I came home from shopping one day, Jennifer said to me, "Well, why are you driving that car without permission? Taking the house car for a spin like that? There's a thief in our midst." Jennifer started saying strange things. I tried to clear up the misunderstanding. This is my car. I explained this several times, but she wouldn't understand. How bold of you. Just because it's Jimmy's car doesn't make it yours. The two of them insisted that my car belonged to Jimmy. We can't have you driving Jimmy's luxury car around without permission. With that, they hid my car keys. Seriously, what's with these people? I gave up trying to convince them. Since then, I had no choice but to use a bicycle to run errands and go shopping. That December, Sarah brought a young woman home. For some reason, we ended up having a dinner party with her. Her name was Kristen, and she worked at the nightclub Sarah managed. Kristen from my club wanted to join our dinner party, so I brought her along. Kristen sat next to Jimmy. Despite being my husband and right in front of me, Jimmy was completely captivated by the younger and more beautiful Kristen. Seeing this, Jennifer squinted her eyes. Oh my, the two of them seem to get along. They make a cute couple. Why don't you just divorce Viola and marry the young, pretty Kristen? Jennifer suggested to Jimmy, right in front of me, that he should divorce me and marry Kristen. What the? I muttered quietly so they wouldn't hear me. That's right. She's a star at our place. If you marry someone as beautiful as her, you can boast about it to everyone. Sarah agreed with Jennifer's words. Hey, cut it out. You're putting me in a tough spot. Jimmy denied their words hastily, glancing at my expression. But Kristen seemed to be flirting with him. So, Jimmy, you own a car dealership. I heard you have luxury cars too. You must have a lot of responsibilities. How impressive. Well, it's nothing that great. Even as he said it, Jimmy couldn't hide the pleased look on his face after being complimented by Kristen. Seeing how Jimmy seemed quite flattered, I sighed. Kristen is a professional at her job, and she's young and beautiful. It's no wonder Jimmy is happy. Then, on another day, when I returned home from shopping, I found Jennifer and Sarah repainting the house walls in a loud color. I was shocked when I saw the new color of the walls. They had painted it pink. What are you two doing? Stop this right now. What an awful color. I hurriedly tried to stop them. Oh, you're back. As you can see, we thought the walls were too plain, so we repainted them. Exactly. We didn't like the dark color before. What do you think? Isn't it pretty? This is a problem. Please, stop immediately. I protested to them. However, Jennifer replied, we got Jimmy's approval, so there's no problem. But it was the first I'd heard of it. Is that true? I haven't heard a word from him about repainting the walls. A while later, Jimmy came home. When he saw the walls, he exclaimed in shock, no way, what is this color? Apparently, Jimmy didn't know about the repainting, so he didn't know either. They must have done this without permission. Those two really were trouble. Who did this? Jennifer answered his question. We did. Jennifer looked at Jimmy and continued. We didn't like the old color, so we painted it a color we like. It's nice, right? Isn't it much better? Cornered by Jennifer, Jimmy gave a weak response. Yay, I guess. Jimmy couldn't argue with them and ended up accepting it after the fact. Jimmy, you really are unreliable. You can't say anything to them. What are we going to do about these walls? They're such a horrible color. I sighed as I stared at the walls, now painted in a garish color. Then, without consulting us again, they dug up the yard and started a vegetable garden. The well-maintained shrubs were pulled out, and the neatly kept lawn was completely dug up. When Jimmy saw this, he rushed out into the yard. Hey, Mom, what are you doing? We've dug everything up to make a garden. But of course, that's fine, right, Jennifer? As usual, asked Jimmy. And each time, Jimmy agreed. Of course, it's fine. Jimmy never opposed the two of them. We had such a nice yard, and now it's ruined. I don't want to know. Since Jimmy wouldn't stand up to them, Jennifer and Sarah continued to do whatever they pleased. One day, Jennifer, unusually, invited me. Hey, Viola, why don't we go hiking together? That's rare. For some reason, Jennifer suddenly invited me to go hiking. Yes, let's go together. It'll be nice for a change. Today, we'll let you ride in the luxury car. All right. Of course, I'll be driving. You can just sit in the back and enjoy the view. Sarah offered to let me ride in the luxury car for the day, and their sudden kindness made me cautious. I hope they're not up to something. And so we got into the luxury car and set off. The car headed toward the mountains. Sarah was driving the luxury car, with Jennifer in the passenger seat, and I sat in the back as we drove up the mountain road. This mountain road is empty. It's perfect. Hardly any cars pass through here. They were whispering to each other. After driving deep into the mountains, Sarah looked around and stopped the car. Is this spot good? There wasn't a single person in sight, and no cars passed by in this remote area. We're here. The air is so fresh. Let's take a little walk, they suggested. Yes, that sounds nice. Viola, come on, get out of the car. Okay. Come on, hurry. I got out of the car as they urged, but Jennifer and Sarah didn't step out. Aren't you getting out? When I turned around to ask, they were smirking maliciously from inside the car. All right, plan successful. It worked perfectly. Huh? What do you mean? Then they spoke to me, who stood there in shock. This car belongs to our family. You should be grateful we gave a ride to someone like you. How was the luxury car ride? Enjoy it. From here, you'll have to find your own way back. It was quite far, wasn't it? Did you enjoy the drive? We're so deep in the mountains, there's no signal here. You won't be able to call for help. Walking back will be tough. The two of them laughed mockingly from the car. Well, good luck getting back. We won't be giving you a ride. Bye now. And with that, they started driving down the mountain road, leaving me stranded. What? So they brought me here just to do this? Ridiculous. I was in disbelief. Fine, have it your way. If that's how they want to play, I'll do as I please too. Watching their car disappear, I muttered to myself. Seeing that the weather was starting to look suspicious, I decided to start moving quickly. If I remember right, it's this way. I happen to know the geography of this area well. I haven't been here in a while. It's so nostalgic. The nature is beautiful, and the air is fresh. Dad used to bring me here often when I was younger. About 10 minutes of walking from where they left me, I came upon a large villa. Now that I think about it, this is my first time here since I got married, I said, reminiscing as I walked. Neither Jimmy, Jennifer, nor Sarah knows about this villa, so of course, they wouldn't have any idea it's here. Well, here we are. With that, I headed toward the villa's entrance. An elderly man approached. I waved at him, the caretaker of the villa. It's been a while. The man looked surprised when he saw me. He hurriedly opened the gate, saying, Miss Viola, what brings you here suddenly? And invited me inside. Thank you. Oh, it's a long story. In reality, my dad is one of America's top real estate moguls. This mountain villa is also one of his properties. Since I got married, I hadn't had the chance to visit here with my dad, so it had been a while since I last came. But in the past, we often stayed here as a family. Listen, Jennifer and Sarah invited me out, but they left me stranded. Can you believe it? And the car they're using, it's the one Dad bought for me. After explaining the situation to the caretaker, he let me inside the villa, and I called my dad for help. Hey, Dad, I need a favor. I need to get off this mountain urgently. My dad quickly agreed, saying, all right, I'll take care of it. He's always quick to act. About 10 minutes later, a private helicopter arrived to pick me up. Well then, let's get going quickly. We need to catch those thieves before they escape, I said as I boarded the helicopter my dad had arranged. In 5 minutes, I arrived at the helipad, at the base of the mountain. From there, I went straight to the local police station to file a stolen vehicle report. Excuse me, my car has been stolen, and I believe the culprits will be coming down the mountain soon. So please keep an eye out. I had gotten down the mountain ahead of Jennifer and Sarah and reported Sarah's car to the police. Now, let's see what happens. I looked up at the mountain and smirked slightly. No matter who they are, even if they're Jimmy's family, I won't show any mercy. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Sarah, unaware of what was happening, were still chatting and laughing as they drove down the mountain road. That was so much fun. Yeah, we did it. I bet she's lost in the middle of nowhere, with no signal. She might be crying. How long do you think it'll take her to walk back home from there? Will she even make it back today? She's probably trying to hitchhike on that road with no cars passing through. Oh, it's hilarious. Unaware that I had already gotten down the mountain, they kept laughing and talking. When they finally reached the bottom of the mountain, they encountered a police checkpoint. Their car was also stopped by the police. Stop that vehicle right there. Huh. Is there some kind of incident? The two were caught and questioned. The police spoke to them in a stern tone. We have a report of this vehicle being stolen. Hearing that, the two were shocked. What do you mean? This car is reported stolen. This is our car. They resisted, but they were ordered out of the car by the police. Please step out of the vehicle so we can get more details. Wait a minute. What are you doing? As I said, this is our car. However, Sarah, flustered by the police's suspicion and their harsh tone, began to panic. What is going on here? Like Mom said, we haven't done anything wrong. Sarah pleaded with the police desperately, but the officer remained calm as he addressed her. We'll discuss it later. Please step out of the car. Sarah, who was driving, was also instructed to exit the vehicle. Wait, you want me to get out of the car too? Why? Sarah shouted in panic, and in her confusion, she suddenly sped off, leaving Jennifer behind. Hey, that's dangerous. No way. I'm not dealing with the police. Stop, the suspect is fleeing. The police quickly rushed to their patrol cars. I haven't done anything wrong. Seeing Sarah escape, Jennifer panicked. Sarah. Wait. Sarah, gripping the steering wheel with trembling hands, accelerated. Why are the police after us? What's going on? As Sarah fled, the police followed closely behind. Stopped a car now. Realizing that a patrol car was tailing her, Sarah became even more agitated. Why won't they leave me alone? Sarah frantically scanned her surroundings. Then, she noticed a sign. All right, if I take this road, they won't follow me. She veered off onto a restricted road. This road is so unstable. The path is rough, but maybe this will make them give up. Sarah sped down the rough, a paved path, but the police continued to pursue her. Wait, that road had a landslide. It's dangerous. You need to stop. Checking the rearview mirror, Sarah saw the patrol car still chasing her, and she began to sweat nervously. They're still following. I have to go faster. She accelerated recklessly, forcing her way through the mountain path at high speed. The patrol car continued its pursuit. This road is terrible. But if I push through, I might just escape. Saying this, Sarah sped up and took a sharp turn. But beyond the curve, there were fallen rocks, and at the speed she was going, she couldn't avoid them. By the time Sarah noticed, it was too late. After a high-speed chase on the mountain's rough path, Sarah's car crashed into the fallen rocks, totaling the vehicle. Sarah crawled out of the wreckage. It hurts, but at least I'm alive. The car, though, it's destroyed. At that moment, the pursuing patrol car pulled up. Why did you run? You need to come with us to the station. Realizing she had no choice, Sarah complied. All right, I'm sorry. Fortunately, Sarah only had minor injuries, but she was arrested for car theft and obstructing police duties. We have apprehended the suspect. When I arrived at the station after being informed by the police, Jennifer and Sarah were in the holding cell, making a scene. Seeing me, they began shouting, "Hey, you! What did you do? Why are we in this situation? Get us out of here." They continued to cause a commotion even there. "Well, you two look as lively as ever." "Lively? Are you serious? Why did you get us into this mess?" I smirked and replied, "Why, you ask? Because you stole a car. Isn't that obvious?" Hearing this, Sarah was enraged, calling us thieves. "What's that supposed to mean? I've told you before, haven't I? The luxury car you were driving is mine, not Jimmy's." I explained to them once again that the car belonged to me, not Jimmy. That car was a gift from my dad. Yet, you hid the keys, acted like it was yours, and treated me like I was the intruder. You said it was your car, didn't you? Upon hearing this, the two of them started shouting angrily, "What? That wasn't Jimmy's car. You tricked us." "Exactly. Why didn't you make that clear from the start?" They began blaming me. "Oh, honestly, what are they even saying?" With a sigh, I responded to them, "That's why I told you from the start. You two never listen to anything I say." I responded with an exasperated expression, pointing out how I had explained all along that the car was mine, but they refused to listen. "No matter how many times I told you it was my car, you were convinced it belonged to Jimmy, weren't you?" Then I added, "And honestly, do you really think Jimmy could afford a luxury car like that with his income? He may act all high and mighty as an owner, but his salary isn't impressive at all." I couldn't help but make a sarcastic remark, but Jennifer and Sarah continued to make a scene from inside the holding cell. "We don't care about that. Just get us out of here." "Yay, how long are you going to keep us locked up? Let us out already and drop the charges." But I refused to withdraw my complaint. No way. Why should I withdraw it? I turned my back on them as they kept shouting, "Hey, wait, where are you going? Stay there and think about what you've done," I said, leaving them behind. Because I didn't drop the charges, the two were officially arrested for theft. The news of their arrest spread quickly, becoming the talk of the town. "Did you hear about the car dealership owner's family getting arrested for car theft? I've seen that family before." So that fancy car was actually stolen. When the incident made it to the news, public suspicion began to turn toward Jimmy, the owner of the car dealership. Although the cars at his dealership were acquired through legitimate channels, rumors spread that the vehicles he sold might be stolen, all because of this scandal. The trust in Jimmy's dealership rapidly declined. People, believing the rumors, grew wary, not wanting to risk buying a stolen vehicle. As a result, the number of customers dwindled, and sales started to plummet. Naturally, Jimmy heard about the rumors. "This is bad news," he muttered, holding his head in his hands. "This isn't true, but people are spreading these stories, and it's killing my business. If things keep going this way, the dealership might go under. What am I supposed to do?" After thinking for a while, Jimmy came to me, practically begging, "Please, you need to help. Can you tell everyone that the cars we sell aren't stolen?" "What? No way. Why should I help you?" I replied coldly. "If you don't, my dealership's reputation will be ruined. We could go bankrupt. I'm begging you." But I knew about Jimmy's secret dates with Kristen, his mistress. "Jimmy thinks he's hiding it well, but I've known all along," I fought. The night Sarah brought Kristen to the dinner, they secretly exchanged phone numbers behind my back. Since then, they had been secretly meeting and going on dates. With this knowledge in mind, I refused to help him. "I don't owe you anything, so I'm not getting involved. Please, Viola." "No, I steadfastly refused his plea. I don't know anything about it. In the end, Jimmy's dealership couldn't regain its reputation. In fact, things got worse. Losing credibility, Jimmy's dealership had its contract with the main office terminated. My dealership? It's over, Jimmy lamented. The dealership had to close down. Additionally, the house where Jennifer and Sarah had painted the walls and started a garden wasn't even Jimmy's property. It was a rent house. Jimmy faced serious consequences from the landlord. What is this awful wall color? Do you understand that this is a rental property? I can't let tenants who act like this stay. You need to move out. Move out, but. And what is this garden? You tore up the yard and pulled out all the plants I had carefully maintained. You'll be paying for the damages. Jimmy, who never stood up to Jennifer and Sarah, was evicted and faced a hefty bill for the damages. Because of Mom and Sarah, everything's gone wrong. I should have listened to Viola and never let them move in. Jimmy fought, but it was too late for regrets. Well, it's time for me to take action too, I said. Having decided to end things, I filed for divorce through my lawyer. Divorce? No way. I'm not going through with it. Jimmy protested, but the dash cam footage clearly showed him kissing and hugging Kristen. Damn, we got caught on camera after all. He was left in shock. Jimmy says he doesn't want to break up. But look, here's undeniable proof of his affair. Just like Jennifer and Sarah suggested, maybe you should go ahead and marry Kristen. I told him this while showing the evidence that Kristen and Jimmy left behind. With this clear proof of Jimmy's infidelity, the court case ended in my favor. Furthermore, Kristen disappeared after stealing the earnings from Sarah's nightclub. Thanks to the private investigator I had hired, I already knew Kristen had another man in her life, aside from Jimmy. I knew it. There was no way someone young and attractive like her would be interested in someone like Jimmy, without a hidden motive. But I chose to keep this information to myself, saying nothing to Jimmy or Jennifer. It turned out that Kristen had cozied up to Sarah, getting close to Jimmy to enjoy the perks while waiting for the right moment to steal the nightclub's earnings. As for Jennifer and Sarah, the court sentenced them to serve time in prison. After the divorce, Jimmy's situation was equally tragic, with his business shut down and evicted from his rented home. Jimmy had nowhere to go. He started living in parks, wandering the streets every day, desperately searching for work. On the other hand, I began working as an office administrator at my dad's company. Starting fresh in a new environment, I found myself with new opportunities and new encounters. Now I live each day with a sense of excitement and hope for the future.
After receiving shocking news from Mom that my sister Margaret, who had eloped and gone missing long ago, had returned, my son Walter and I went home, only to find, as expected, a pair of women's shoes. Moreover, my sister, Margaret, who appeared, was shockingly in her underwear. She burst into laughter and proudly boasted to me. Snagged myself a luxurious high-rise condo and a rich husband. Let the poor slog away at part-time jobs for life. But then a voice came from behind. Too bad. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore. My husband, Mitchell, said this nonchalantly as he appeared. So you thought you could create a fait accompli with me? He started laughing. And to what end, I wonder? You know all the houses belongs to Sabrina, right? Yes, the high-rise condo we currently live in is mine. It was something I acquired through inheritance from my previous husband. My name is Sabrina Newman. I'm a 34-year-old working for an organization involved in the preservation of American classical culture. Mitchell is a former junior of mine in graduate school, where he too studied American classics, 3 years my junior. He is currently continuing his research to finish his thesis and obtain his PhD, while still enrolled in the doctoral program. Since he has more free time, he helps with taking our son, Walter, to and from school and extracurricular activities, in place of me, who is running around working during the day. But that's not all. Frankly, Mitchell is much better at household chores than I am. He makes simple yet efficient meals, cleans with minimal effort required to keep things tidy, other than his own study space, and handles laundry and everything related to it more delicately and carefully than I could. I'll take care of you for life. So can I ask you to take care of the housework? That was essentially how I proposed to him. Honestly, I fell for those aspects of Mitchell. I was just too busy to handle everything. I told him he didn't have to worry about living necessities and could continue his research. Even his parents were surprised. They even asked if I intended to treat their son as a toy boy, which now feels nostalgic. But in the end, after discussing our feelings, how we'd adjust our lives together, our child, and many other things, we got married, and he became a stay-at-home dad. Though it was an unusual pairing, we were getting along happily and having fun. But then, one day, something unexpected happened. It was a certain Tuesday afternoon. That day, with Mitchell's mind preoccupied with his thesis, I decided to unusually pick up Walter myself from work. Just as I was about to leave in the car, the phone suddenly rang. Hello? Mom, what's up? It was from Mom. My parents' home is located in a rural area, a 5 to 6 hour drive from the metropolitan area we currently live in. Since getting married, whether we go there for a long vacation has been a question. So, we usually keep in touch frequently through messaging apps. But it's rare for her to call me directly. Both of my parents, considering my busy work life, usually specify a time when they call. It's terrible, Sabrina. What happened all of a sudden? Margaret has come back. Margaret has? Margaret is my sister, 2 years younger than me. However, I haven't seen her for over 10 years. She ran away from home at the age of 18. Apparently, her partner's company went bankrupt. Bankrupt? Yes. She kept ringing the doorbell, and when she came in, she said they had incurred a huge amount of debt and her partner had fled in the night. To avoid debt collectors coming after her too, she had someone else sign for her and filed for divorce. Without realizing it, I let out a sigh. And now? I told her she couldn't stay, but she showed up anyway, and she even left her daughter with us. What? She left her behind? Yes. The girl was so small, I asked her age and was really surprised. So, what surprised you? Well, when she arrived, I thought she was still in kindergarten. But turns out, she's just 1 year younger than Walt. What? A year younger than Walter, who's 9? If that's the case, she should be in her 2nd year of elementary school. Yet, to look like a kindergartner. Hey Mom, is she really that small? She's not only small, but also extremely thin. Her skin is rough, and she has cuts and bruises. I've given her some snacks and let her take a shower, but she seems very uncomfortable. The voice of Mom speaking sounded like she was holding back tears, as if she might break down at any moment. But this had to be asked. Mom, you wouldn't kick her out, would you? What are you saying? Of course not. No matter how terrible Margaret may be as a parent, this child is our granddaughter. Ah, her clothes are all torn. That's a relief. So, Mom, where did Margaret go after leaving the child? That was something I had to ask. She's headed your way, Sabrina. Why to my place? Apparently, before coming to us, she had gone to see some old acquaintances. And somehow, she was told that you married a rich man. I instinctively placed my hand on my forehead. Whoever it is, giving partial information can cause trouble. Did that person give her our address? No, but it seems she got your work-related SNS account. Work-related, huh? Can't be helped. My job sometimes requires a certain degree of publicity through SNS. So, Kevin is hurrying over to your house right now. Dad is? So please, hold on until he gets there. Wait, Mom, when did Margaret leave there? Before I could get a response, Mom hung up. It's just past 3 p.m. now. Picking up Walter from school and then taking him to his extracurricular activities, waiting for him to finish, and then doing some shopping. Mitchell has been so absorbed in his work since yesterday that he won't be up for preparing meals tonight or all day tomorrow. So, shopping is definitely necessary. And even if he takes a break from writing, he's likely to sleep through meals. Usually, after staying up for about 3 days, he ends up sleeping for a day and a half. It seems it'll be past 6 p.m. by the time I finish buying ingredients for meals that can be prepared quickly. I was worrying about what will happen next. What? You have a sister? Yes. I see. I decided to explain the situation to Walter in the car after finishing the shopping. Are you surprised? No, well, I figure since it's our family, there must be a lot going on. Walter, being 9 years old and in the 3rd grade of elementary school, is quite perceptive and somewhat mature for his age. Our family being somewhat unconventional, he quickly understands situations when explained. I suppose he takes after his father in that regard. When I was a child, my interactions with my sis were much more simplistic, often involving loud arguments. Walter, in contrast, is calm and thoughtful. Almost worryingly so. Well, yes, there's a lot going on. Like what? Where should I start? There are things that can be shared with a child and things that cannot. You know the house where we used to live, right? Yeah, near Grandpa and Grandma's place. My sister didn't like staying in that town and ran away over 10 years ago with someone she loved. Wow, that's kind of cool. Wait till you hear the rest of the story. Yes, Margaret ran away at the age of 18 with a venture company president who was nearly 40 years old at the time. But it wasn't really about love. Margaret was into sugar dating. Even while she was in high school. Our family never made me or Margaret want for anything. They had saved enough to send us to any school we wished to attend. And gave us more than enough allowance every month. But it seems that was still not enough for Margaret. Margaret had gone to a private university in the city center, but at the end of her first semester, the academic affairs department suddenly contacted us. It turned out Margaret was pregnant. When Dad, furious, demanded to know who the father was, Margaret confessed the name without hesitation. It was the same person she later married and divorced on her own. Angry both at the sugar dating and the man involved, our parents told Margaret to leave. She left without argument and then cut off all communication with us. Once the initial anger subsided, concern crept in. The absence of any news from her felt like a breach of duty, adding to our parents' anger. They became the subject of rumors in the neighborhood and at work. Suffering the embarrassment of having raised a daughter who would do such a thing. Dad, who had been a strong candidate for a promotion, felt it was out of reach for a while. I've heard various painful stories about those times. However, hearing Mom's story earlier, something else caught my attention. The child is said to be 8 years old now. Which means it's not the same child that Margaret was pregnant with over 10 years ago. What happened to that child? That's something I can't help but wonder about. Mom, you look scared. I apologized to Walter in response to his comment. Is something bothering you? Yes. I'm thinking about your cousin. Eventually, we returned to the apartment, laden with bags from our shopping. But the bags were too heavy, so I decided to borrow a cart from the concierge at the entrance. Mrs. Newman, your sister, Miss Edwards, was here earlier, the concierge informed us. Wait, you let her in? We checked and copied her ID for verification. At that, I covered my eyes with my palm again. I'm sorry. It's my fault for not ensuring strict control over who comes and goes. So, I shouldn't have let her in? Well, yes, but it's okay for this time. It's my fault. Also, has Dad arrived yet? Your father? Please wait a moment, the concierge said before checking. It seems he has not arrived yet. I see. Well, when my dad does arrive, please let him in immediately. Understood. I showed a picture of Dad to the concierge, emphasizing that he should definitely be let in. Then, loading our bags onto the cart, we took the elevator up to the top floor. We're home. As expected, when I opened the door, there were women's shoes. Oh, you're back early. What came out was Margaret, flashier than in my memories, but also appropriately aged. But that wasn't the issue. What's with that outfit? Margaret had appeared in just her underwear. Walter, who had been pushing the cart beside me, was wide-eyed and speechless. What do you mean? Then she laughed and boasted to me as if she had one. Snagged myself a luxurious, high-rise condo and a rich husband. Let the poor slog away at part-time jobs for life. Walter and I were stunned. But then a voice came from behind her. Too bad. Sleeping pills don't work on me anymore. Margaret's backdrop changed as Mitchell appeared, wearing a shirt over his bare skin. His disheveled hair and the way he came rubbing his head, juxtaposed with Margaret's state, could mistakenly suggest a scenario had occurred between them. However, such a thought didn't cross my mind at all. That's impossible for him. I had that confidence. Ah, great. Her messing around with stuff like that broke my concentration. Seriously. Wait, what do you mean it didn't work? You knew about the sleeping pills. I did think it was strange I was feeling so sleepy out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean I can just fall asleep because of it. That's odd, isn't it? Ignoring Margaret, Mitchell turned to Walter. Walter, you went shopping for us? Thank you. Yeah, Dad, help me put things away. Saying so, Walter pushed the cart inside. Okay, Mitchell said, pushing the cart with Walter to the kitchen. As they moved, he muttered, both annoyed and deliberately. I heard from Sabrina that she had a sister, so I thought there might be something up. But to be drugged upon first meeting? Well, my sleep schedule is all over the place anyway, and I'm so preoccupied with what I'm working on that I don't sleep unless I decide to. So, I can tell the difference between natural sleepiness and the one caused by pills. Margaret's expression turned even more sour, hearing Mitchell's words. I figured you were up to something, so I just played along and pretended to be asleep. But really, what are you doing? Mitchell spoke in a calm, matter-of-fact manner. Facing him, Margaret, who had appeared confident at first, was shocked, not understanding what had happened. What's with this guy? It was a bad match for her, to say the least. I'm the one who wants to ask what's going on. What's with that outfit? And you stripped his clothes off, trying to create some fait accompli? I sighed deeply. Why has she always been so foolish? Still, it's not hard to imagine what happened here. Margaret found out I was living in a high-rise condo in the capital region and came all the way here. She then went around the neighborhood, claiming to be the sister of someone living on the top floor of a high-rise condo, gathering information. She figured out that Mitchell, while being a stay-at-home dad, was doing research related to my current job. She must have assumed Mitchell would be home alone and targeted a time when I was out. From Mitchell's perspective, after being persistently buzzed, he finally noticed the intercom to see a woman claiming to be my sister. At that point, he was still half in his research, not fully back to reality. From Margaret's perspective, a seemingly unkempt man in almost indoor clothing answered the door. She probably thought, "Wow, he's young. Did Sabrina manage to snag a younger, intellectual guy who owns a high-rise condo?" Then, she proceeded to drug him with sleeping pills she inexplicably had, strip him down, and push him into the bed, intending to present that scene to me. But Margaret doesn't know Mitchell. He's the type to lose track of time and meals when engrossed in research or writing papers. That such a scheme would be futile against someone like him is something I know all too well.
What? She wanted to create a fait accompli between us.
Mitchell's voice grew louder, and he burst into laughter, holding his stomach. What would that even accomplish? The house is all Sabrina's, you know? Yeah, what's this old woman talking about? What did this kid say? Well, he is my son, after all. Yours? He's pretty big for that. This guy's still in his 20s, right? Well, he's from my previous marriage.
What? Remarried? So the marriage to a wealthy man.
You wouldn't know, having been on the run all this time. Saying this, I finally entered my own home. As I took off my coat and placed my bag down, Mitchell made some tea, saying good job to me. Glancing around, I noticed a half-opened bag carelessly placed on the living room table. The room, clean except for my study, seemed oddly disordered just because of that bag. It was unsettling. I wanted to tidy it up immediately.
What? You're not going to offer me even a cup of tea?
Margaret stared at me resentfully as I enjoyed my tea.
I don't feel like offering anything to someone who puts sleeping pills in drinks.
Ugh.
More importantly, how long do you plan on staying in that outfit? I don't want a seductress wandering around my home. First explain why you, of all people, own this high-rise condo.
Why can Margaret never keep up with a conversation? Well, I suppose I'll have to explain, or she won't understand. Look, when my previous husband passed away leaving his child behind, he left us a considerable fortune. That's how I bought this place. Paid in full, not on a mortgage.
Paid in full, by you? But this place costs millions of dollars.
Well, it's still just 1/100th of the real estate I own now. Margaret was at a loss for words. Indeed, the top floor of this high-rise condo is entirely mine. But that's not all. I now own numerous properties and have a net worth of $200 million. Managing my passive income allows for a comfortable lifestyle, and I serve as an advisor to an organization involved in the preservation of American classical culture. Part of it for tax purposes and partly for Mitchell. My busy daily work is in my role as a director of this organization. And I occasionally receive reports on land matters. When I explained,
You own what?
Yes, I do. You probably don't know, Margaret, but I got married right after graduating from college. Though you probably don't even know why that happened.
What do you mean? Because of the huge mess you made, Dad's reputation at his company plummeted, and things got very difficult. I was already an adult. What I did was my own business.
You weren't of age at that time, though. Having a daughter who's been sugar dating since high school made people think we were incapable of proper parenting. Mom felt ashamed for a while. Then, I happened to get a marriage proposal. From the Anderson family.
The Anderson family?
Yes, the so-called lords of our local area, that family.
What? You married into that noble family?
I sighed. Then Mitchell, let's go over there for a bit, took Walter aside, saying so. Walter, understanding it was an adult conversation, complied.
So what? You married into that family?
Yes, but not to the person you're thinking of. I married the elder brother, the next in line.
That bedridden, good for nothing, considered the family's burdened by the Andersons?
Yes, him. Indeed, my ex-husband was described that way. He has been weak since birth, has hardly ever gone to school, and was always in the presence of a doctor. That's why he was said to be the baggage of that famous family. But that was merely the external perspective. His parents and the brother-in-law, the heir, did not think of him that way. Everyone loved him, a man without desires, for his kindness. It was he who, having happened to see me during one of my hospital visits, fell for me. The Anderson family themselves came to our home to request my hand in marriage for their son, who had never asked for anything else before, bowing their heads to me, who was more than a decade younger. To slightly ease my parents' social standing, I married at the age of 22. My ex-husband passed away while Walter was still in my womb. Even this pregnancy was through artificial insemination. He simply didn't have the strength to father a child naturally. It was my parents-in-law wish to have a grandchild if possible. And for the sake of my kind ex-husband, I agreed. He was able to watch my belly grow but passed away without seeing his child's face, leaving only a name behind. After becoming a young widow, my in-laws thanked me for everything and, following his will, left me his inheritance. However, some relatives eyed the considerable inheritance that suddenly came to me like hyenas. Therefore, when Walter was about to enter kindergarten, I moved to a secure high-rise condo in the city center. After further explaining this, Margaret reacted.
Yeah, right.
She shook her head and hands, exclaiming,
You expect me to believe such a stroke of luck story?
Her face was filled with utter disbelief as she shouted at me. Well, it's your choice to believe it or not.
Then what about that man now? You got such an inheritance and you're allowed to remarry.
I was allowed. Though, I didn't really need permission. Still, I consulted them out of guilt for such wonderful in-laws. They said they were sorry that I had to spend the best years of my youth caring for an ill person and going through a pregnancy via artificial insemination.
That's more than enough with such an inheritance.
They said time and life cannot be bought with money. My kind in-laws, who had lost their beloved son to illness, understood these two values very well. Likely because they were wealthy. After moving to the city, my life differed from when I was with my in-laws. I was exhausted from single-handedly raising a child. That's when I reunited with Mitchell, a junior from my college days who had admired me. He became a great help to me, overwhelmed as I was. Gradually, Walter grew attached to him, and I began to think it would be nice if Mitchell stayed with us, leading me to propose. My in-laws described Mitchell as harmless and seemingly uninterested in anything but his studies. Their support, rather than opposition, to our marriage might also have served as a deterrent to relatives who were keen on pushing their candidates for remarriage onto me, thinking they could control the inheritance.
So, you get to have all the good fortune.
Just as Margaret began to speak, my mobile phone rang. The call at this time meant, ah. I switched the phone to speaker mode after answering.
Hello, Sabrina. I hadn't heard back from you for a while. Are you okay?
Margaret groaned on the spot. Mom, I'm fine, really.
Good to hear. By the way, I just heard a noise like a frog being squashed. Is Margaret there by any chance?
Yes, she is. I looked at Margaret with a full smile.
Mom? How did you know I'm here? You've always been the type to forget what you said after just taking 3 steps. Didn't you tell me you were going to Sabrina's? That's awful. How can you treat your daughter so differently?
Margaret shouted angrily at the mobile phone.
What? Do you think you're in any position to say that? After you left, it was Sabrina marrying into the Anderson family that saved us from the mess you made. Kevin had a decent position in the company, which only made the rumors worse. That was all cleared up in just 2 years, thanks to Sabrina. The Andersons pulled some strings for us, saving our neighborhood, relatives, and Kevin's colleagues who admire him. You were about to ruin all of Kevin's hard work and progress in the most important company in our town. That's not my problem. I didn't ask him to be successful. But it's thanks to that success we could attend a private university in the city center.
Yes, so?
That doesn't give you the right to be self-righteous.
Maybe so.
But, Margaret, what happened to the child you were carrying back then?
With a chilling tone, Mom asked Margaret a piercing question.
What? You ran away with your partner because you were pregnant. So, what happened to that child? He took the child with him. I managed to get in touch with that person of yours.
Margaret moaned.
Impossible. Through Mr. Anderson's connections, when I was looking for where you guys were, I managed to get a hold of your mobile phone number.
Mom said this in a way that felt like she was cornering her.
The person said, "I'm sorry for running away, and I'm grateful she agreed to the divorce." It seems, though his talent for making money was mediocre, he was a better person than you. He said he couldn't say where, but he's found a job far away and intend to pay off his debts. All by himself. By himself?
I questioned Mom.
Yes, by himself. You can imagine what that means, can't you, Sabrina?
Mom had mentioned that the child Margaret brought was in a terrible state. I quickly turned to Margaret.
Your own child. Stop it. Why are you looking at me like that? Mom mentioned it. The girl you left with her was very thin. That's because things have been tough recently. Tough, yet carrying that kind of bag?
I pointed to the bag carelessly left on the living room table.
Clearly a brand name, isn't it? I bought it 2 or 3 years ago. And the girl, just a year younger than Walter, looked like a kindergartner, didn't she, Mom? Yes, that's right.
Mom's voice grew even lower.
She said her name was Alice. Did you even send her to kindergarten or school? She seems a bit delayed in speech. Of course.
Grandma, is Mom over there? A frail voice came from the other side. Yes, Alice. Do you want to talk to Mom? No. I definitely don't want to go back. I don't want to return to Mom. Alice, Margaret's daughter, started crying on the other side. I don't want to end up like Ashley. I see. A horrifying truth seemed to lurk beneath these words.
We've been chatting on and off. There seems to have been a sister named Ashley.
It's from the past. In other words,
I don't know anything about that.
As Margaret hastily tried to grab her bag and clothes.
Not so fast.
He grabbed her hand while Walter secured the bag and clothes. Then, turning to another mobile phone.
Hello, Grandpa, now's the time.
As if on cue, the front door opened.
Police! We received a report of a woman here on charges of illegal entry, assault, and child abuse.
Sabrina. You did well to stall for time.
Dad!
Several police officers then secured Margaret on the spot.
Are you all right, Mrs. Newman?
Yes, I'm fine. The concierge was also standing at the entrance, having unlocked the door.
Long time no see, Margaret. Dad.
A police officer took Margaret's clothes and bag from Walter. Since there wasn't time to dress her, a blanket they had presumably brought was draped over Margaret. Pointing to the bag. "We haven't checked, but I believe it contains sleeping pills. I'll be accompanying you for a blood test. My body doesn't react much to them, but I believe it's still in my system. We appreciate your cooperation." Then, over the phone, Mom asked me to switch to camera mode, revealing herself holding a small girl in her arms.
"Officers, it seems Margaret has harmed her first child as well, leading to the loss of a small life, our first grandchild."
Alice is wearing Walter's clothes when he was much younger. Walter had been quite big for his age when he was about to enter kindergarten. But these clothes seemed to fit Alice, albeit slightly snug. Her thin, bony wrists were visible at the cuffs. "Ah, those are my clothes." "Hi, are you Alice?" Walter gently spoke to his cousin through the screen, displaying the kindness inherited from his biological father.
"Yes, who's this?"
"I'm Walter. Your cousin. I'm 1 year older, so I'm like a brother."
"Brother."
Mentioning brother seemed to remind her of Ashley, her sister who was no longer with them, and Alice started to whimper. "Come and play sometime." The girl on the screen nodded slightly. "All right, Sabrina, we'll take her away now, sorry for the intrusion. Walter, let's play shogi later."
"Okay, I'll be waiting."
Right after our exchange.
"What is this?" "Your own little family drama." "Well, I have lost everything."
Hearing this, I quickly approached Margaret and slapped her sharply across the face.
"Hey! You violent woman! Police officer! Arrest her for obstructing justice."
As the officers restrained the struggling Margaret, one of them gave me a wry smile and gently chided.
"Let's not do that, please."
"Sorry.
But I had to say this to Margaret." "What do you want?" "Everything you lost is because of your own actions. It's nobody's fault but yours. Nothing will ever return to you, and I'll make sure of it. Alice will be part of our family. You will never involve yourself with us again."
"Let's go, everyone." He urged Dad to move.
"Right, see you later, Sabrina."
"I'll be waiting, Dad." "Take care, Mitchell." After seeing them off, I sat down wearily.
"Are you okay, Mom?"
"I'm just so tired." "It was a good thing we did the shopping today, huh?" Indeed. What a day it had been. It had only been about 6 hours since Mom's call. According to Dad and Mitchell, who returned, Margaret would be detained by the police for a while.
"I won't allow bail." "Absolutely not."
During a late dinner, Dad spoke with a strained voice. "Since the divorce is finalized, and there's no one from her side to take her in, let's get Margaret tried in court soon." Eventually, Margaret did receive a prison sentence. After causing her family back home so much pain, leading to the death of one child, and being abandoned by the other, Margaret faced a long and solitary road ahead in life. Sometime later, my parents brought Alice to our home. "Hey, you've become quite cute." Alice blushed deeply at Walter's comment. "Where on earth did you learn to talk like that, huh?"
"Dad, stop, it tickles." "Stop it."
Walter laughed and played with Mitchell. Alice, watching this new father and son who were not related by blood, looked on in amazement, then turned to gaze at me and Walter. "Is it really okay to live here, Sabrina?" Alice slurred the word live here. Adopting her was something I had resolved to do from that moment, believing it was the best course of action. Initially, I thought maybe she could be raised by my parents. However, they felt that back home, she might be burdened by the stigma of being Margaret's child. My parents planned to move closer to me after retirement. Until then, we agreed to travel together on long vacations, settling our plans. Alice seemed to be a bit behind in her studies, making it difficult for her to attend the same school as Walter. Still, we could offer her a much more comfortable life than before. With the source of our troubles gone, all we needed to do was to take our time and work towards happiness. We had plenty of time ahead of us. While I was out shopping, my phone rang with a call from Dob. Answering, I heard Dob's voice, sounding deflated.
Well, what a surprise, you're alive. I heard the house caught fire. What?
Indeed, I had heard sirens earlier, but never imagined it was my house involved.
I heard a woman got seriously burned.
You okay?
What? I'm out shopping. There shouldn't be anyone at home.
So it wasn't you who got taken away. Dob sounded more disappointed than relieved. Dob definitely knows something about this fire. I just had this gut feeling.
I have many questions, but they can wait. I'm going to check on the house.
I hung up and started running. My home, meant to be a modest yet warm sanctuary, was engulfed in flames. I can't believe it burned down. I've always held back, but if Dob was planning to hurt me, I'd never let it slide again. Sooner or later, people like Dob are bound to face their downfall. If that's the case, I'll be the one to push him over the edge. My anger is unstoppable. I am Sharon. A single, 40-year-old office worker. Well, perhaps not so ordinary. I'm a big fan of Meriwether, a male idol from Kiss Me Prince. I'm so hooked that I pour most of my monthly salary into supporting him. Meriwether has this younger brother vibe that's very healing to watch. I record all his shows, and for live events, I'm at my computer 10 minutes before tickets go on sale, ready to battle it out. My family and relatives might shake their heads, but this happiness is something only a true fan can understand. As long as I have someone to love, I should feel fulfilled, or so I thought. But now, Clayton, the last of my close friends from college, has gotten married. Looking around, I'm the only one left unmarried. The reality I've been avoiding all this time has finally caught up with me. Overwhelmed, I impulsively signed up on a matchmaking website. And I decided to attend a party organized by the matchmaking site, where I was destined to meet someone special.
Wait. Meriwether?
A young man who could be mistaken for Meriwether from afar was there. During the mingling time, I made a beeline for him.
Excuse me. You're Meriwether from Kiss Me Prince, right?
He laughed, amused. People say I look like him, so I've styled my hair and vibe to match. His name was Clayton, 5 years my junior at 35. But youthful enough to pass for his 20s. As a self-confessed idol fanatic, I was completely charmed by Clayton. Clayton seemed to take a liking to me too, and we started dating. He treated me like a fan on our dates, and I found myself falling for him, projecting Meriwether onto Clayton. In hindsight, it was odd that such a desirable man would choose a 40-year-old idol otaku like me, but at the time, I was oblivious. Soon, I received a formal proposal. The proposal took place at a location where Meriwether once proposed to the lead actress in a TV drama. Lost in my romantic fantasy, I accepted his proposal without hesitation. However, just before we were to register our marriage, Clayton brought a high school boy to our date.
Actually, I have a son living with me.
The boy introduced as his son, Dob, didn't resemble Clayton much. He was a quiet-looking kid. Clayton is 17 years old. Wearing thick glasses and with unkempt hair. His gloomy appearance was evident as he wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I should have come clean sooner, but just couldn't find the words. I'm sorry, Sharon. His apology pose, so reminiscent of Meriwether's that it seemed studied, unexpectedly triggered my maternal instincts.
I suppose I can forgive you.
We were a completely foolish couple. Then, I overheard Dob muttering under his breath.
Just another wrinkled old lady.
I couldn't believe my ears.
What?
It was said so naturally that I wondered if I had misheard. I asked Dob to repeat himself, but Clayton interrupted.
Dob seems happy to have a new mom. Let's get along.
Clayton and I then went to submit our marriage license. Since the office was closed, we left it with a security guard and officially became husband and wife. Originally, I lived in a house with plenty of empty rooms, so I decided to have Clayton and Dob move in. To be precise, the rooms weren't exactly empty but filled with merchandise of my beloved. But now, I was going to live with my real beloved. I decided to let the merchandise sleep at my parents' house. It was a significant decision for me. Packing away my cherished Kiss Me Prince goods into cardboard boxes, I made a promise to put Meriwether on hold for a while and focus on building a warm family. I thought the fun times as a family of 3 would begin once Clayton and Dob moved in, but that didn't happen. Clayton, claiming to be busy with work, would stay at the office 2 or 3 nights a week, leaving me and the gloomy Dob alone at home most of the time. Dob continued to avoid eye contact and seldomly spoke. Except for school hours, he barely went out, spending most of his time locked in his room playing video games. Yet at meals, he would mutter barely audibly complaints about the meat being hard or the food not being worthy of the name. While I tolerated his complaints as childlike behavior, his lack of initiative in job hunting or studying while gaming all day bothered me. So, I brought it up with Clayton when he returned home late one night.
What's going on with Dob's career path?
Clayton responded with apparent annoyance.
I'm leaving it up to Dob. He should do what he wants.
I mentioned that Dob didn't seem to be job hunting or studying at all. But Clayton wouldn't take it seriously.
Look, Sharon, can't you see? It's late. I just got home. I'm tired. Can you not stress me out with trivial matters?
Despite his fatigue, shouldn't he be concerned about his child's future? Was it strange that I, once a stranger to them, was the only one worried? That thought crossed my mind, but I couldn't voice it further. It was just sad that Clayton, who used to dote on me, now treated me as a nuisance. Then, one day, Dob unusually brought home a girl. She was a quiet girl, wearing glasses, just like Dob. I had thought he wasn't the type to attract someone, but perhaps Dob had gotten himself a girlfriend. After eating and drinking in the living room, they whispered to each other for a while before leaving the house. Honestly, I was the one who felt nervous. Until recently, the thought of becoming a mother hadn't crossed my mind, but now, was I to educate teenagers about sex all of a sudden? I was relieved when they quietly left. I watched from the second-floor window as Dob and the girl walked away side by side. That's when it happened. I noticed a woman glaring at me from over the fence of the neighboring house. The sight was so terrifying that my body froze, unable to move. The woman soon disappeared behind the fence. I wanted to discuss it with Clayton immediately, but he didn't come home that night. Just remembering the woman's gaze from the daytime frightened me, making it hard to fall asleep. Perhaps due to the stress, I came down with a cold the next day. Dragging my heavy body to work, dealing with Dob's complaints, and after managing the household chores, Clayton came home just as I was lying down. I tried to bring up the woman I saw the previous day. But seeing my intent expression, Clayton grimaced.
Is this about Dob again? Got more complaints?
It's not a complaint.
By the way, it seems Dob has got himself a girlfriend.
Clayton sneered, looking pleased in a distasteful way. For a moment, his smile, reminiscent of Meriwether, was soothing. Until he spoke again.
That's my boy. The art of roping in simple girls, I taught him well. Simple girls?
I echoed back, and Clayton hastily corrected himself.
No, I misspoke. Just shared some tips on wooing a girl he likes.
Then, he gently tapped my head.
Thanks for all your hard work. I appreciate what you do for me.
Being treated this way used to bring me the utmost joy during our dating days. But now, I couldn't shake off the doubts in my heart. Was I considered a simple girl too? Was I being strung along? But for what reason? I'm just a temp worker, neither wealthy nor well off. After Clayton went to take a shower, I rummaged through his wallet as a precaution, but found no suspicious receipts. Still, I couldn't shake off a bad feeling and grew increasingly distrustful of Clayton. And so, I never got around to talking about that woman. The next morning, Clayton had already left for work by the time I woke up. As I went downstairs to make breakfast, I was greeted by the pleasant smell of sausages cooking. Something that had never happened since we got married. To my surprise, Dob was preparing breakfast for me in the kitchen. Sausages and fried eggs with salad and yogurt. He had even poured me a cup of coffee.
Wow, this is amazing. What's all this for?
Dob, avoiding eye contact again, murmured in a soft voice.
You're not feeling well, right? Thought I'd at least make breakfast.
For the first time, I felt a genuine warmth and care coming from Dob.
I'm so happy. Thank you.
Embarrassed, or perhaps ignoring my gratitude, Dob shoved the frying pan into the sink. He didn't do the dishes, but it was a start.
I'm off to school.
With that, Dob grabbed his bag and left through the entrance. Savoring this moment of joy, I sat alone at the dining table and began my breakfast.
Let's eat.
Any homemaker knows there's significance even in a simple meal prepared for them. I reached for the coffee first, intending to eat everything, but in my excitement, I knocked over the cup. The coffee Dob poured out spilled all over the table.
Oh no, I'm such a klutz.
Although regrettable, it didn't dampen my spirits. Quickly wiping the table and finishing my breakfast, I felt somewhat lighter.
Right, I need to go grocery shopping. And we're out of detergent, too. I'll head to the cheaper supermarket a bit farther away.
I walked to a supermarket I don't usually visit. Passing by a fire engine on the way made me feel a bit uneasy. I hoped whatever house it was heading to would be safe. While shopping, my mobile phone vibrated. It was a call from Dob. Answering, I heard Dob's unexpectedly indifferent voice.
Well, what a surprise, you're alive.
Alive? What was he talking about? As I puzzled over his words, Dob dropped a bombshell.
The house burned down. I saw it on social media. What?
I did hear sirens earlier, but to think it was my house.
Heard a woman got seriously burned. Are you okay?
Something felt off. This wasn't the same Dob who showed kindness earlier. His words felt distant, almost mocking.
What? I'm out shopping. No one should be at home. So it wasn't you who got taken away? The art of roping in simple girls, I taught him well.
Dob must know something about this fire. I felt it instinctively.
There's a lot I want to ask, but that can wait. I need to see the house for myself.
I hung up and started running, catching a taxi to rush to the scene. When I arrived, the house was indeed completely destroyed. A crowd had gathered in front of what used to be my home. Leighton from the neighborhood approached me excitedly.
You're safe, that's good. A young girl in a uniform was taken to the local emergency hospital. Who is she?
I couldn't confidently answer the question, but there was one person I could think of who might be the girl in uniform. It was Dob's girlfriend who had visited our house recently. I was stopped by the police, who mentioned they wanted to talk later due to the incident's nature. I got back into a taxi and headed to the emergency hospital. As the taxi swayed, tears began to form. My home, supposed to be a modest yet warm sanctuary, was all gone. I can't believe it was completely consumed by flames. And Dob's attitude on the phone earlier kept bothering me. If his kindness this morning was only superficial, intending to harm me afterward, I would never show leniency again. Sooner or later, people like Dob would face their reckoning. If so, I was ready to be the one to push him. My rage was unstoppable. At the hospital, I tried to inquire about the situation but was denied due to privacy concerns, unable to meet the girl brought from our house. As I sat in the lobby, a woman rushed in, frantic.
Where's Bess? I saw on the news she was severely injured. It's okay. The news was incorrect. She suffered burns to her face and limbs,
but her life is not in danger. I was startled. I knew this woman. She was the one who had glared at me through the fence that day. Noticing me, she introduced herself with a business card.
My name is Chanel. I'm Clayton's wife and the mother of Dob and Bess.
I exclaimed in surprise.
But I'm Clayton's wife.
Chanel seemed to want to explain, but decided visiting her daughter was more urgent.
Sharon, please come with me.
In the hospital room, the girl who had visited our house, Dob's girlfriend, lay in bed. Upon seeing me, she burst into tears.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Comforted by Chanel, Bess sobbed and revealed the whole story. Turns out, Bess wasn't Dob's girlfriend but his sister. She had admired her kind brother since they were young. But some point in time, her brother changed. She said he learned from our father how to wrap simple girls around his finger. After that, he rarely came home. Probably because he was living with me, but Dob told Bess he was living with a convenient woman. Even when he did come back, seeing my brother repeat his misogynistic remarks, Bess wished for the brother she remembered.
How can I get my kind brother back?
She asked Dob, and to that he answered like this.
I want you to set fire to the house of Dad's mistress, Sharon.
Bess, swayed by Dob, scouted my house for this reason. That's why Bess had come to my house. After much hesitation, thinking of her brother, she went through with it. But called the authorities immediately after realizing the gravity of her actions. To save me, supposedly asleep inside, she broke a window to enter the house and got injured.
Wait. What do you mean supposedly asleep?
Through tears, Bess answered.
My brother planned to put sleeping pills in your coffee.
A chill ran through me. Had I not spilled my coffee, I might not have been safe. Chanel, in a near frenzy, scolded Bess and apologized to me.
How could you do such a foolish thing? You nearly killed someone. Sharon, I don't know how to apologize enough. It was a lack of supervision on our part. What Dob and Bess did was terrifying.
About that, I started, addressing my lingering doubts.
Dob is legally my child now, right? We submitted the marriage license.
Chanel hesitantly took a piece of paper from her bag. It was Clayton's family register. Indeed, Chanel's name was listed as his wife.
My husband had previously deceived another woman in the same way. You and Clayton submitted the marriage license after hours, didn't you?
She was spot on.
Because he's already married, it should have been rejected, but the security guard accepted it after hours. Probably, the office tried to contact Clayton's mobile afterward, saying the license is invalid due to bigamy.
Faced with this unbelievable truth, I felt dizzy.
Why would Clayton do something like this?
Chanel sighed deeply. Her forehead marked with deep lines of hardship.
Sharon, by any chance, are you a fan of Meriwether from Kiss Me Prince? My husband is obsessively confident in his resemblance to Meriwether. He completely imitates Meriwether's fashion, hair, and gestures, approaching female fans to cheat and revel in the thrill. He can't be satisfied unless women idolize him like an idol. I've had enough this time.
At that moment, the door of the hospital room opened, and a flustered Clayton entered. Seeing Chanel and me together, he had a look of regret. With fiery anger in my eyes, I glared at Clayton.
So we were strangers all along. You said you were staying at the office, but you were actually going back to Chanel's?
Clayton frantically tried to explain, but I wasn't listening anymore.
I'll be filing for damages, including for the house your son burned down. We're not related, so it won't be dismissed as a family matter.
I grabbed my bag and strode out of the hospital room. Behind me, I could hear Chanel and Clayton arguing. As I vowed not to let this end here, I went back to my parents' home. Afterward, Dob was arrested by the police. At my request, Bess was not arrested and was able to go home after being discharged from the hospital. Bess's face was left with scars from the burns. The emotional scars inflicted by her brother wouldn't heal easily. she would have to carry the heavy cross of having committed arson. I thought there was no need to punish her further. As for Dob, who showed no remorse, I intended to let the authorities handle him. Dob was about to turn 18. He was likely to be tried as an adult, not protected by juvenile law. While preparing the lawsuit, the doorbell rang. There stood Clayton.
Sharon, I'm really sorry about Dob. Can we start over? I want you to be my fan again. Can you give me that energy of liking someone?
Can you give me that energy of liking someone? Was a classic line from Meriwether's concerts. The old me would have been swayed, but now it just seemed like a mockery of Meriwether.
You're not an idol. Just a 35-year-old man who looks like one. And if you don't realize it soon, you'll continue to embarrass yourself.
At my words, Clayton, flush with shame and anger, lashed out at me.
What the hell? You've always seen me as just a substitute for Meriwether, haven't you?
I can't say I was without fault. But Clayton, having cleverly orchestrated this situation, now acted as if I was to blame.
Yes, and I've realized it. You're neither Meriwether nor my ideal prince. Just a middle-aged man full of self-delusion.
I slammed the content certification for the compensation claim I had prepared into Clayton's hands.
This arson incident is the result of your misguided teachings. You'll take full responsibility. I'll add on the amount for deceiving me, so make sure you pay up. Otherwise, I'll sue you for marriage fraud.
Clayton, who had come to plead for reconciliation, was instead faced with a compensation claim and turned away in defeat. Self-centered to the end, Clayton left filled with disappointment. Perhaps frightened by the threat of a lawsuit for marriage fraud, Clayton later transferred the compensation amount, significantly more than the market rate, in one lump sum. This must have drained Clayton's savings completely. I heard that Chanel also divorced him and demanded compensation. For a while, he'll be without money, making it difficult to maintain the idol-like hairstyles and clothes. As for Dob, he was tried as an adult and sentenced to prison. During the trial, Dob's stubborn refusal to show any remorse, blaming the series of crimes on me, seemed to worsen the impression of the jury. As a result, he received a heavier prison sentence than usual. Of course, he was expelled from high school. Dob's misdeeds became widely known in the local community, making it impossible for him to continue living there after his release. In the evening, I bought a number of pen lights and headed to the park. Girls all dolled up were waiting in high spirits, waving their light sticks. Today was the long-awaited live concert of Kiss Me Prince. I dug out the merch I had put to sleep and resumed my fandom. Going to the live with female friends I made in the fandom is now my greatest joy. After all, the charm of having a crush lies in them being out of reach. Vowing never to make the same mistake again, I headed towards the live venue.
If you're going to have your ovaries removed, you're not planning to bury a child, right? Since you're no longer needed, can you divorce me?
My husband Michael confronted me with divorce papers.
What are you talking about?
I won't forgive you if this is a joke, in such a situation. Just a few days ago, I was rushed to the hospital with sudden abdominal pain. The diagnosis suggested the possibility of ovarian cancer. And I was admitted for surgery the following day. This is no joke. I've been putting up with this until now. No, the real endurance had been mine. Living with the in-laws and their harassment. Why should I be the one presented with a divorce petition? On the day before my surgery. Anger, sadness, despair, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me as I covered my face. Then, to add insult to injury, I heard the voices of the in-laws, Kevin and Stella.
A barren woman should quietly step aside. It's shameful for a woman of your age to cling to a younger husband. These 3 years have been a waste of time for Michael. Please disappear from our lives quickly.
Their words cut deep into my heart. Fighting back tears, I managed to steady my trembling right hand with my left and furiously signed my name.
All right, this makes us complete strangers.
With that, Michael pocketed the divorce papers. As he was leaving, Michael said,
Actually, there's a nice girl at work lately. She's young, cute, and healthy. Ah, it was right not to take the ugly genes from an old hag.
I was speechless at his cruel words. Little did I know, meeting Michael again 3 years later would turn out to be quite unexpected. My name is Ava. I married Michael, who is 2 years younger, 2 years ago. We met at work when I was 38, and after his persistent pursuit, we got married. Having given up on marriage, I initially refused his advances.
There are plenty of younger women out there. I like someone independent and calm like Ava. I might not be able to have children at 38. I don't want children, I want to be with you, Ava.
Despite my objections, Michael insisted I was the only one for him, and I set just one condition for our marriage. Just promise me one thing.
I'm not obsessed with having children due to my age.
Let's not force ourselves to have children. Michael agreed to this condition, and we got married. Michael, who had always lived with his parents, insisted on continuing to do so after our marriage.
I'm an only child, and I'll have to take care of my parents eventually. Why not live with my parents from the start?
Though living with strangers at this age was daunting, I consented to live with his parents, Kevin and Stella, out of gratitude for marrying a leftover like me. However, I quickly realized this decision was a mistake.
Ava will need you to do the shopping, cooking, dishwashing, garbage disposal, and bathroom cleaning.
Why was I the only one expected to do so much when there were 4 adults living in the house? I felt uneasy from the start but couldn't voice my concerns. They seemed to think of me as a housekeeper.
Ava, I want to eat Odin today.
Ava, the entrance is getting dirty, please clean it.
Ava, iron my shirts.
What kind of life had the 3 of them been leading before I arrived? The in-laws' house wasn't dirty, so someone must have been doing the housework until I came. This realization only added to my frustration. Furthermore, the in-laws were overjoyed at the prospect of their only son getting married and expected a grandchild right away. You're nearly 40, you should start infertility treatments soon. No, we're fine without children.
What are you saying? There's no point in marrying if you're not going to have children.
The in-laws couldn't understand our choice not to have children.
Well, we're not young anymore, so we decided not to be too nervous about having children,
Michael said, trying to convince his parents at first. But the in-laws were persistent. No matter how much Michael tried to persuade them, the question of when we were going to have a grandchild would resurface after a few days. One day, Michael came into the room, red-faced.
Mom said I should get checked at the hospital because it might be my fault you're not getting pregnant.
Feeling wounded in his male pride, Michael started taking it out on me. It's not my fault, is it? Michael is just hurting himself. Of course, I didn't say it out loud, but my dissatisfaction grew day by day.
We're proving it's your fault we can't have kids. We're going to the doctor.
Eventually, Michael said something like that. However, I had no intention of undergoing fertility treatments, so naturally, I ignored what he said and lied about being too busy with work to escape from my in-laws' house. I'm home. Listen, Mom. The only saving grace was that my parents' house was near my office. Before going home, I'd stop by my parents' house to vent my frustrations. There, my loving parents, Thomas and Olivia, who had already retired and were enjoying their later years, were waiting for me. I wonder how they felt about their daughter, who got married close to 40, exploding with complaints about her in-laws and husband so soon after getting married. At first, I felt sorry for my parents, but they listened to my complaints as if they were a snack to accompany their drinks.
Ava, what's wrong today? We got some nice liquor from the neighbor. Let's drink together.
Perhaps it was because my parents took it so lightly that I was able to complain. Why does everyone think marriage equals children? Plus, pregnancy and childbirth are all tough on women. And then to have the husband's parents complain.
People are just set in their ways, especially as they get older. I'm told I've softened with age.
Dad has mellowed with age, hasn't he? Maybe Michael will turn out like Dad? With time, this situation will probably become a laughing matter. Just like this, my parents always encouraged me. Having my parents on my side always gave me strength, and I was somehow able to continue my marriage. Then one day, on my way home from work, I suddenly felt severe pain in my lower abdomen. What's this pain? Cold sweat broke out due to the pain, and I couldn't stand, sitting down on the sidewalk. I tried to search for my mobile phone to call for help, but my hands were shaking so much from the pain that I couldn't properly search for it. Fortunately, a passerby noticed and called an ambulance for me. At the hospital, after various tests, I was told there was a possibility of ovarian cancer.
Could you contact your family immediately?
Asked by the nurse, I called Michael. It was past 7 p.m., and Michael should have been home, but he didn't answer the phone no matter how many times I tried. Reluctantly, I called Mom.
I'll be there right away. You'll be okay, Ava.
Mom encouraged me and soon arrived at the hospital with Dad. Tears streamed down my face the moment I saw my parents. I wasn't strong enough to face cancer alone after turning 40. Mom gently stroked my back. With my parents, I listened to the doctor about my condition. The right ovary is highly likely to be cancerous. We recommend the removal of both ovaries and the uterus.
Does that mean I won't be able to get pregnant?
Yes. Are you hoping to get pregnant, Ava? I hesitated. Honestly, at 41, I wasn't that desperate to have children. But, given the pressure for children from the in-laws and Michael, I felt a moment of resistance to making my body unable to bear children.
Is there another treatment option if I wanted to get pregnant?
I asked timidly. You have to think about your body first. My parents looked worried. The doctor quietly said to me, there are options, but further tests are needed to see if they're applicable to Ava. My parents were probably surprised I was still concerned about getting pregnant. I was surprised myself. I couldn't quite express my feelings, but the thought of having both of my ovaries and my uterus removed without ever having had children made me feel indescribably empty. Maybe if I don't give up and keep trying, Michael, Kevin, Stella might change their minds about me. That thought crossed my mind. I can't completely give up on getting pregnant. Can you leave one ovary? The doctor looked into my eyes and nodded. I understand how you feel, Ava. However, depending on the progress, there might still be a need to remove everything. As a result of the discussion with the doctor, surgery to remove my right ovary, the site of the tumor, was scheduled for 5 days later. If the tumor was confined to the right ovary, we would see how it goes with the addition of chemotherapy. If there's any spread, you must give up on pregnancy for good. The doctor emphasized, and I nodded firmly. Thankfully, my parents quietly supported me without saying anything about my decision. Mom came to the hospital every day, taking care of me when I was feeling down. Did Michael get in touch? No. He doesn't answer the phone, and he hasn't responded to my messages about being hospitalized. I don't understand what's going on with Michael. My parents were silent, seemingly not having realized how much their daughter's marriage had deteriorated.
Maybe he's just busy. Dad and Mom have plenty of time, so don't worry about things like laundry. Oh, I'll buy your favorite pears later.
Mom tried to keep my spirits up by being cheerfully supportive. I was deeply moved by my parents' warmth. I decided to do my best in the surgery for my parents as well. Just then, Michael and the in-laws entered my hospital room. It was the day before the surgery. I glared at the three of them.
Why are you ignoring my calls and messages?
Michael casually responded. Seems like you've been through a lot. Good job. Expecting him to apologize for not contacting me, I was speechless. Why can he speak so indifferently about his wife undergoing surgery? Anger welled up inside me, and I glared at them even more. Seeing my reaction, the three of them exchanged some words, then looked at me with a disdainful smile.
Leave! I don't want to see your faces!
Unable to hold back, I yelled at them, forgetting we were in a hospital. Then Michael walked up to me and thrust a piece of paper at me.
If you're going to have your ovaries removed, you can't have kids, right? Since you're useless to me now, will you divorce me?
The paper Michael thrust at me was a divorce petition.
What are you talking about? I won't forgive you for joking about this in such a situation.
It's no joke.
I've been putting up with this until now.
No, I've been the one putting up with everything. Why should I be the one presented with a divorce petition? On the day before my surgery, anger, sadness, despair, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me as I covered my face. Then, to add insult to injury, the in-laws spoke up.
A barren woman should quietly step aside. It's shameful for a woman of your age to cling to a younger husband. These 3 years have been a waste of Michael's time. Please disappear from our sight quickly.
Their words cut deep into my heart. Choosing a treatment that left open the possibility of pregnancy for their sake now seemed foolish. What is this treatment? Stunned, Michael left the divorce petition and a pen on the bedside table.
Just sign your name, and it's all done. Be thankful I'm handling this for you.
Saying so, Michael forced a pen into my right hand. I wasn't opposed to divorcing per se. In fact, I couldn't bear the thought of living with the in-laws and enduring their snide remarks until we had a child. But I had endured their tyranny for these 3 years. I endured it because they were family. They must have seen me only as a childbearing machine. The resentment towards the three who didn't offer support but instead presented me with divorce while I was facing surgery was immense. I bit my lip, holding back tears, and with trembling hands supported by my left, I wrote my name.
All right, this makes us complete strangers.
With that, Michael pocketed the divorce petition. The three of them left the room with satisfied looks. At the last moment, Michael turned back and said,
Actually, there's a nice young girl at work. She's young, cute, and healthy. She doesn't have a single thing in common with you. Ah, I was right not to inherit ugly genes from an old hag.
Glaring at Michael, he said,
Good thing I divorced the old hag.
And left with a smirk. The only sound in the quiet room was my sniffles. Michael and his family had pushed me, already overwhelmed by illness and fear, further down into despair. I buried my face in the blanket and cried. After some time, there was a knock at the door. I hurriedly covered my face with the blanket and pretended to be asleep.
Ava, you're sleeping, huh?
I peeled some pears for you, eat them later. The voice belonged to Mom, who always entered without knocking. She quietly came in and placed a container of pears on the table.
I'll move all your stuff to our house today. After you're discharged, maybe you can help with the laundry. Oh, and Dad has started cooking. Look forward to Dad's cooking. I'll come back tomorrow morning.
As Mom gently stroked the top of my head peeking out from the blanket, she quickly left the hospital room. It seemed like she knew everything without needing to say a word. Perhaps she had overheard the divorce conversation with Michael and the others outside the room. Feeling the infinite kindness and warmth of Mom, I found myself tearing up again. After a good cry, I lifted my face. The pear was cut into bite-sized pieces for easy eating.
Mom, thank you.
As I bit into the pear, the smiling faces of my parents came to mind. I need to get better soon to repay Dad and Mom. I decided to work hard on my treatment, with the goal of giving my parents peace of mind. The next day, I underwent surgery to remove my right ovary. It turned out to be cancerous as feared, but fortunately, the left ovary was normal. Next, I would undergo chemotherapy to target the unseen cells. The first round of chemotherapy was tough due to the medication not agreeing with me and the strong side effects. I couldn't eat anything, and as my hair fell out, I could see myself getting thinner. But my parents were always there to encourage me.
Yesterday, we saw the meteor shower you like. Dad found 5 shooting stars. We made wishes, so you're definitely going to get better.
Thinking about Dad, who normally wouldn't care about shooting stars, getting up in the middle of the night to watch the sky, filled me with a sense of his love and the warmth of family. Thanks to them, I was able to keep a strong resolve to fight for their sake. My hospital stay ended after 6 months, and I switched to outpatient treatment.
If nobody uses it, it just collects dust. It's good that Ava is coming back.
My parents didn't ask about the divorce. They simply brought me home as if it was the most natural thing. I couldn't return to society immediately and spent some time recuperating at home. Supported by my parents, I gradually began to recover my former self. And then, the second year after my surgery began. Before I got sick, I always lazed around on holidays, but after experiencing cancer, I made sure to live a regular, healthy life.
That was a good walk.
As I finished my usual morning walk and was about to enter the house, the mailman arrived and handed me a delivery. It was a letter with a baby's photo attached. The name on it was surprisingly Michael's. While I was fighting my illness, the man who left me had found happiness and even had the child his in-laws wished for. I wondered what he intended by letting me know this fact. Seeing the letter didn't make me feel good, but Michael was already a stranger to me. There was no need to waste my nerves on a stranger. I decided to move on. I knew my parents would be upset if they found the New Year's card. So as soon as I entered the house, I tore it up and threw it in the trash, making sure they would never know. I then managed to return to work. Since my parents' house was close to the company, I could commute without overexerting myself.
How was the healthy sandwich?
It was delicious. Thank you as always. Every day, Dad prepared a nutritionally balanced sandwich for me. This touched since this was something he had never done when I lived at home.
Dad, you're really good at cooking. Did you always know how to cook?
I whispered to Mom, who shook her head.
Dad got excited about making Ava's sandwiches. He improved his cooking skills over the last few months.
Watching Dad happily make sandwiches while humming, I could tell he was truly happy to see me well. Parents always give their children unconditional love, no matter their age. I wished I could be a parent who gives unconditional love like them. That thought made me smile. Having one ovary left didn't matter since I was still single. But I needed to stay healthy for my parents. And I promised myself to repay them one day. I have decided once again. Then, one day, Michael and the in-laws suddenly appeared in front of me. They were waiting for me to return from work in front of my parents' house.
Ava.
Michael murmured my name as they all apologized profusely without caring about the onlookers.
I was wrong. I want to start over.
What is he talking about now? Especially since Michael already had a child. I was furious with Michael for his irresponsibility and the in-laws who followed him like fish droppings, apologizing together. As I glared at them silently, Michael began to explain.
I was deceived.
According to Michael, he married the young woman from his workplace right after divorcing me, because she was already pregnant. Knowing now that he had cheated on me while we were still married made me upset, even after all this time. Then, just like the letter said, they had a son and were supposedly living a happy life until it was discovered that Michael's current wife was having an affair with another man. Michael became suspicious when she always stepped outside to take calls and never let her mobile phone out of her sight. He decided to hire a detective, and that's when he found out. Even more shocking was that the son he believed was his turned out to be the child of his wife's lover. When confronted, his wife casually admitted to the affair and the truth about the child. Laughing, she said,
Obviously, I'd choose his genes over yours. Who would want the genes of an ugly old man like you? That sounds familiar.
I muttered, and Michael hung his head.
I really am sorry. I've only just realized how terribly we treated you.
Following Michael's lead, the in-laws also apologized. We won't say anything about the child anymore. Can't we start over? Dad and Mom are sorry, too. What convenient people they are. After everything they did, I couldn't understand how they had the nerve to appear before me so casually, and I didn't feel like talking to them. Then, alerted by the commotion at the entrance, a man and my parents came out of the house at just the right moment. Guests? What are you doing here? Mom raised her voice upon seeing Michael and the others apologizing in front of me. The man behind my parents was taken aback by Mom's reaction, but then quickly came to my side.
Please stay away from my wife.
Then, my new husband Brian stood protectively in front of me, facing Michael and the others. Michael and his party were dumbfounded.
My wife? What do you mean, Ava? This is a joke, right? Why would you think it's a joke?
I retorted, seizing the moment to fight back. Sorry, but I'm married to him now.
Thanks to you insisting on that divorce, I found someone who loves me for who I am, not as a childbearing machine.
I wrapped my arm around the man beside me to show him off to Michael and the others. He was a colleague from work who had taken on my responsibilities while I was off sick. After returning to work, he helped me manage my workload so I wouldn't overdo it, and gradually, we spent more and more time together.
Being with Ava makes me realize the small joys in life. Will you marry me?
He proposed, accepting me for who I am, and we got married 6 months ago.
Wait, your stomach! Are you pregnant?
At that moment, Michael's mother screamed upon noticing my noticeably larger abdomen. Michael looked at my stomach and frowned deeply at me.
You said you were getting your ovaries removed. Did you lie to me? How low can you get, lying like that? Enjoy playing the victim?
The in-laws joined in, berating me just like before.
Weren't you the ones who demanded a divorce without listening to my side? You wanted children so much, I decided to keep one ovary just in case there was a chance of pregnancy, but you never listened, did you?
Anger from the past surged within me. Feeling my rage, he stroked my back to calm me down.
My wife has endured harsh chemotherapy and is still fighting hard with the remaining ovary. Please, never come near my precious wife again. If you break this promise, we will take legal action.
His firm stance left them with nothing to say, and they backed off.
We thought we'd do you a favor by offering to keep you as a housekeeper since you're alone. Well, suffer through your high-risk pregnancy then.
Michael left with a parting shot, retreating with the in-laws. My parents rushed over to me. Ava, are you all right?
I swear. If they show up again, They won't get off so easily.
My parents, who had seen me through the tough times, were filled with anger. I will always protect you, so please don't worry. His strong words finally eased me and my parents. Later, Mom heard that Michael had also made his new wife live with the in-laws, just like me. I had thought that Michael and his family were completely deceived by his new wife, but it turns out that wasn't entirely the case. They had disregarded me because I couldn't get pregnant, or so they believed. So, I imagined Michael must have been very kind to his pregnant new wife, but it seems that wasn't the case at all. They didn't take care of her despite her pregnancy, making her do household chores and carry heavy things without concern. Some neighbors, seeing her buying groceries for a family of 4 with her large belly, were so worried they helped carry her bags. Of course, the woman who cheated with Michael and bore the child of her affair was also at fault. But no one could make her feel guilty given how much Michael and his parents exploited her. Michael and his parents made their marriage partners live with them as housekeepers twice, only to divorce them shortly after. This bad reputation spread in the neighborhood, and nobody wanted to associate with Michael's family anymore. Still, they continued looking for a wife to take care of them, but as soon as Michael brought a woman home, neighbors would warn her about their reputation. Thanks to this, no woman became their victim again, and the 3 of them now live a meager life under the strange gazes of the neighborhood.
Was their house always full of trash before Ava married in?
No, they kept it fairly clean. I guess without a wife, Stella must manage the household well.
I see.
Mom nodded, understanding. Lately, Stella hasn't been well, probably due to her age. While Michael works, he has to take care of Stella, but with just the 2 men, the house has recently become neglected.
They only have themselves to blame. They have to figure it out as a family of 3, blood-related.
They need to deeply reflect on how they've mistreated their marriage partners.
Mom, I'm home.
Just then, my daughter and husband returned.
Welcome back, we've been waiting. Let's play with Grandma.
Seeing Mom, my daughter rushed into her arms with the brightest smile. My daughter turned 2 this year. When she was born, my husband and parents cried and thanked me. There were times I doubted why I chose to keep 1 ovary for treatment, feeling guilty towards my quietly supportive parents. But now, I have no regrets. Because I have such a wonderful family. After giving birth, our family of 3 started living in an apartment close to my parents' house. My parents would come over with extra dishes they made or vegetables they received, always finding reasons to visit. Though I've resigned myself to the fact that having another child at my age is unlikely, my daughter never feels lonely because my parents are always there to play with her, which has been a great help to me.
Grandma's joining us for dinner, right? Is that okay, Ava?
Of course, invite Dad too.
Thank you. Dad said he's bringing some pears from the fridge.
Our ordinary, warm conversations filled the air. Harassment, divorce, illness. I've hit rock bottom at times, but thanks to my parents and my current husband, I'm living happily. And my daughter, who came into my life when I had almost given up on pouring unconditional love like Dad and Mom, has made my life shine brighter.
Mom, here, take this.
My daughter placed an acorn she picked up in the park into my palm.
Wow, thank you. I'll treasure it.
I hugged my daughter. Together as a family, caring for each other, we want to continue cherishing the small joys of life.
Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still in middle school. To leave him and move abroad.
Barbara, the wife of her son, tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled.
Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. He seems to get along with you in an odd way, so please take good care of him.
It's one thing to speak ill of oneself. But to say such words about her own son, Daniel, it made her tremble with anger. However, those feelings were suppressed, never turning into words, remaining in her heart. Daniel and I watched the car carrying the departing son and his family until it was out of sight, then looked up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered, Daniel pointed out that there were still a few left. My son Charles and his family had taken many oranges for memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was hard to see clearly, but some of the fruit seemed to be slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As it got colder with a slight breeze, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside, but he shook his head slightly and turned to me, his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow.
It's okay. You don't need to worry.
I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, and then pondered some more, firmly resolving to affirm and raise this child positively. My name is Susan. Lately, I've lost my appetite and have been feeling unwell. When I consulted a doctor about my unclear health issues, I was advised to get more nutrition. Even with the vague advice to get more nutrition, I wondered what exactly I should eat, considering going to a steakhouse every day. But that would never be sustainable with any amount of living expenses, so I decided to make balanced meals every day. No, that would be too much hassle to keep up. So, I decided to make it a point to eat the oranges planted in my garden. Honestly, I never really cared for the oranges planted in the yard before. I hadn't paid much attention to them every year. Usually, I left the fruit for the birds to eat or just cleaned up whatever fell to the ground, but this year, after seeing a TV infomercial about easy-to-use pruning shears, I was full of motivation and bought them. Just when I was determined to start picking the oranges, I ended up hurting my back. It was supposed to be easy according to the sales pitch, but apparently not for someone with a bad back. If there's a house in a quiet residential area known for its large orange tree, that would be ours. Our orange tree has years when it bears lots of fruit and years when it doesn't, and this year, the branches are laden with oranges. It's just the year I was determined to eat a lot of them. But what to do with my injured back? Just when I was thinking that, my son and his family came to visit at the perfect time. When I explained the situation to my son, he immediately said, "All right, I'll pick them." And he rushed out to the garden. My son and my grandson, Christopher, were using a long-handled pruning shear to joyfully pick oranges from the branches.
Wow, Christopher! You got a big one!
My son skillfully cut the oranges from the branches and had his son pick them up. As for me, I was sitting by the window overlooking the orange tree, staring at a chessboard with my other grandson, Daniel. Daniel was looking intently at the chess pieces laid out on the board, lost in thought, seemingly oblivious to the noise of Charles and Christopher gathering oranges in the garden. It seems I was so focused that I didn't even hear Charles and Christopher making noise while gathering oranges in the garden. When Christopher, the older brother, quietly placed an orange beside Daniel and then turned to me, he put his index finger to his lips in a gesture for silence. He didn't want to disturb his brother, who was deeply engrossed in the game. That was the kind of kindness Christopher had.
Charles, lunch is ready.
Yeah, thanks. We'll be right there. Perhaps one reason my son and his wife visit my house several times a month is because my husband had passed away early. My son's wife, Barbara, is a down-to-earth woman who naturally takes over the kitchen in our house to prepare lunches for everyone. Daniel and I were invited to join them for the meal, but Daniel remained silent, staring at the chessboard, unwilling to move. When I gently touched Daniel's shoulder,
"Huh?"
He looked up in surprise, saying,
"Grandma, will you play chess with me after lunch?"
"Of course. Let's go." Barbara, Charles, and Christopher were enjoying their meal while watching TV, laughing together. The TV featured a special on a high school soccer player belonging to a famous high school, and Charles pointed at the TV, tapping Christopher on the shoulder. "Hey, look, Christopher. The high school you're going to is on TV." Christopher has always been athletically gifted, shining in every game he plays. Daniel took up soccer as well, but wasn't quite as skilled. He couldn't outshine his brother. Barbara looked at Christopher with joy and said,
"I heard from a friend that Christopher is quite famous among middle schoolers. He's really good at soccer. It seems his name has even spread to other schools."
She looked even happier than Christopher, the subject of the conversation. I couldn't help but clear my throat and glance at Daniel's expression. He looked somewhat lonely, slowly slurping up his pasta one strand at a time.
Now that Christopher has a scholarship for soccer in high school, it's Daniel's turn. With a promising brother like Christopher, Daniel will surely improve quickly too.
Right. Christopher and Daniel, let's play soccer in the park after lunch.
But Charles, isn't Daniel going to continue with chess?
Oh, right. You haven't finished yet? I informed Charles that the game was still ongoing. Then, I suggested if they'd like to join us in chess, though playing soccer is also great. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and started laughing together.
You're joking, right? Playing chess by the window on such a sunny day?
What an unhealthy hobby. Charles, that's a bit harsh on Susan's only hobby. Both of them seemed to mock me and Daniel, but I didn't want to argue and risk spoiling our family relationship, so I nodded along and started washing up in the kitchen. I peeled the freshly picked oranges, placed them on a plate, and brought them out. Christopher and Daniel started eating them, laughing together. I discreetly approached Charles and tapped him lightly on the head from behind.
"Hey, you know Daniel isn't much into sports like soccer, right? He enjoys playing chess, so don't say weird things."
Did I say something wrong? Charles, seeming neither concerned nor remorseful, took the ball and went to the nearby park with Christopher and Barbara. Left behind, Daniel and I returned to our seats by the window. Sitting in front of the sunlit chessboard, Daniel casually looked up at the orange tree.
"There are still a lot of oranges left, huh?"
"Yes, do you want some more?" Daniel shook his head slightly and then turned his gaze back to the chessboard, refocusing his attention. He has a strong ability to concentrate. At this point, I can't predict how Daniel will grow up, but I have a feeling he'll take a path quite different from his brother Christopher's. And so years passed since then. On a sunny day, Daniel and I were again eating oranges picked from the garden. After Charles finished bringing in few small boxes to my house, he stood by the window with a gentle smile, looking up at the orange tree.
"Sorry, Mom, please take good care of Daniel."
I pondered over how to respond. While caressing the oranges picked from the garden, I sighed. Christopher, having been recognized for his soccer talent at his new high school, was scouted by an overseas club team. I, knowing little about soccer, couldn't grasp the significance of the team that scouted my grandson. But when I heard Charles was ready to quit his job and move abroad, I realized this was a big deal. With assistance promised by the scouting team for their life abroad, Barbara was already excited about the overseas move. Every time we met, she would say,
"I'm really interested in foreign cultures."
She was already studying the culture of the country through books. I had assumed the whole family would move abroad, but they asked me to raise Daniel alone in my house. Christopher was initially surprised and was opposed to the idea.
"Think about it, Christopher. Wouldn't Daniel be happier living here with Grandma than in an unfamiliar environment? Don't you think so?"
But Barbara convinced him by saying so. And today, after moving all of Daniel's belongings into my house, they were set to leave on an afternoon flight. Daniel looked sad as he checked the contents of a cardboard box filled with his clothes. Charles and Christopher, knowing they wouldn't return to this house for a while, picked many oranges from the garden tree as a final memory. As the tree's branches became bare with each orange picked, it started to look naked.
Daniel, Grandma might not feel well sometimes, so help her out, okay?
And work hard on your studies too. Charles said this to Daniel as he cheerfully bid farewell. Though I knew it was already decided, I couldn't help but pull Barbara aside to a spot away from Christopher and Daniel and started speaking in a low voice.
Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still attending middle school. To leave him and move abroad.
Barbara tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled.
Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. Since he seems to get along with you in a strange way, please take good care of him.
It's one thing to speak ill of oneself, but to say such words about your own son, Daniel, made me tremble with anger. However, those feelings remained pressed deep into my heart, never turning into words. Daniel and I watched the car carrying my departing son and his family until it disappeared from view, then turned to look up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered about the tree, Daniel spoke and pointed out. There are a few left. Charles and the others had taken many oranges as memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was unclear, but some appeared slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As the breeze grew colder, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside. He shook his head slightly and turned to me, his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow.
It's okay. There's nothing to worry about.
I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, then resolved to affirm and nurture this child positively. 9 years have passed since then. Beside the chessboard by the window, I looked up at the orange tree in the garden. The birds know best when the oranges are ripe, pecking at the fruit when it's time. I used this as a cue to start harvesting. Stepping out from the window to the garden, I picked a low-hanging fruit. It was free of insect damage and had a nice color. After the doorbell rang, I called out loudly,
"It's open!"
To my surprise, I was greeted by an unexpected visitor as heavy footsteps approached.
Mom, it's been a while.
Where's Daniel?
It's really been a long time. What brings you here all of a sudden?
Well, I saw Daniel's achievements in the newspaper.
Isn't it amazing? Finally, he feels like our son.
As I sighed heavily and sat back down in front of the chessboard, Barbara asked,
Where's Daniel? He's reading a chess magazine in his room. He's a pro now, so try not to disturb him.
Since our parting 9 years ago, Daniel and I played chess daily, and he gradually showed his talent, eventually becoming a professional chess player. The journey was tough, but we persevered together. Though he never said it, Daniel might have wanted to prove something to the parents who left him. Recently, Daniel won a major title as a pro chess player, making headlines. I hadn't told Charles or Barbara, but they must have found out and hurried back. Soon, Daniel came out of his room. He had grown taller and more robust over the 9 years, the perfect picture of health. Charles, seeing his son all grown up, said, "It's been a while." Saying this, he put his arm around Daniel's shoulder, and from behind, Barbara also.
"You've become so admirable,"
smiled tenderly, as if completely contented. "Now I'm willing to live with you."
"Now that you're a respectable adult, it's your turn to help out your dad and mom with their lives." "I'm apparently not your child, so I have no obligation to help." The conversation sounded almost like a comedy, making me burst out laughing. Charles, tapping Daniel on the shoulder, looked puzzled.
It seemed like the words were completely unexpected. The audacity to offer to live together after 9 years was astonishing. What's wrong? Are you being stubborn after this long reunion? You must have been lonely living with Grandma all this time. Don't worry, we'll live together from now on. What are you talking about? Live together? I'm not a child anymore. Why should I live with you? Barbara, pulling Charles away from the frozen embrace, said.
What are you saying? We haven't been able to contact Christopher for years, and our life is in shambles. We've been living off Christopher's soccer income, and now we have no savings.
What does that have to do with me?
After all the effort we put into supporting Christopher's soccer, he suddenly disappeared. We didn't know what to do. It's impossible for us to start working now, and you're the only one we can rely on.
If you're looking for Christopher, he's here in this house. Hey, Christopher. At Daniel's casual call, Christopher appeared from the kitchen, wearing a cute cat apron, holding an orange, and skillfully peeling it with a knife.
What's up?
Christopher, with an innocent expression, surprised Charles and Barbara by being there.
Christopher, why are you here?
Seems like there's a lot we need to talk about, so just sit down and wait. I'll cut some oranges for us. As Christopher served the oranges on a plate to Charles and Barbara, I prepared coffee for everyone. Christopher began to share that, although he was initially enthusiastic about his soccer career and contract with an overseas club, his experiences abroad gradually sparked an interest in becoming an interpreter. Upon hearing Christopher's dream, Charles,
being an interpreter won't earn you as much as a professional soccer player. That's not acceptable.
Dismissed it without even listening. Disappointed by his parents, who seemed only to care about the money he could bring in rather than his dreams, Christopher lost interest in soccer. He secretly contacted Daniel and me and returned to our town. Now, he's working at a language school while studying to become an interpreter. After explaining this, Christopher sat up straight and faced Charles and Barbara directly.
I'm truly grateful that you took me abroad for soccer. But I've found a dream I want to pursue more than soccer. If you're going to deny that, I'd rather you not be involved in my life.
Not be involved?
Do you know how much we sacrificed to support your soccer career abroad?
He reflected on how much time he had sacrificed as a father to support Christopher's soccer. He passionately explained how much he and Barbara, Christopher's mother, had hoped and expected to make Christopher a top soccer player.
Christopher, your dad quit his job to support your soccer. And now, you're giving that up for a job as an interpreter? It's not too late to go back to the club team.
Right, that's a good idea.
If life gets tough until you succeed in soccer, Daniel can support us.
He's a famous chess player now, after all. The conversation seemed somewhat detached from reality. Perhaps even Charles and Barbara realized the absurdity of their words. Despite understanding the unfairness of their situation, fear of not being able to survive without such plans seemed to drive their irrational statements. The reason no one spoke up wasn't because the discussion had concluded, but rather because the end point of the conversation had become unclear. I poured coffee into each of the empty cups. The scent of coffee filled the living room, which was enveloped in silence. Daniel quietly shifted his gaze to the chessboard by the window. After Dad and Mom left for abroad, I played chess almost every day.
Left for abroad? That makes us sound like the bad guys. Do you think you would have been happy if you had come with us?
You're right.
If I had lived with parents like you, I might have lost sight of what I was striving for, just like Christopher did.
This provocative stance immediately angered Barbara. She stood up and lunged at Daniel, prompting me to quickly step in front of him to block her. Barbara glared at me and shouted at Daniel.
Move! How dare you speak to your parents like that?
Speak to your parents? It's been 9 years. 9 years. You didn't come back to see Daniel even once in all that time. Can you imagine how long these years have been for him?
We are their parents, you know? Can you believe that children wouldn't help their parents? Christopher and Daniel are saying they're abandoning us when we're in trouble.
Charles, not wanting to be outdone by Barbara's intensity, stood up to face me as well.
Exactly. It's irresponsible not to help when your parents are in trouble. It's a child's duty.
You're talking about duty? I mentioned I was feeling a bit unwell 9 years ago, remember? Yet, you chose to ignore that and went abroad. It's shameful to change your tune when it suits you.
But that's because...
Charles mumbled awkwardly, his gaze darting around, not sure what to do. Christopher approached Daniel with a calm voice and apologized. I'm really sorry for everything. Dad, we've decided we want to cut ties with you and Mom. Can you just leave us alone from now on?
Don't joke around.
What do you take your parents for? Use us when convenient and discard us when done? You're going to abandon us irresponsibly while we're struggling with our lives? Involuntarily, I found myself shouting.
That's not it.
My voice might have echoed throughout the quiet neighborhood, possibly heard by the neighbors. But I couldn't worry about the neighbors at such a moment. I grasped Christopher and Daniel's hands firmly in mine. Holding them by my sides, I could feel them trembling slightly. Despite their calm demeanor, they were frightened by their biological parents' sudden visit. I knew I had to express the anger on their behalf. It was time to voice the feelings Christopher and Daniel had harbored towards their parents.
It's the adults' job to work for their children, not the other way around. We're the parents. We are a family.
After abandoning a young Daniel and selfishly deciding on Christopher's potential, like you have any rights to say that. How are you their family? At my words, Charles's eyes widened in shock, and he reached out to grab my collar. Instinctively, I braced for any potential violence by curling up defensively. However, Daniel quickly stepped in front of me and effortlessly lifted Charles, sending him spinning through the air. And before you know it, Charles was lying on the ground, looking up at Daniel. In a state of shock and lying down, Charles is too astonished to say anything. He probably never imagined that the once frail Daniel could throw him.
I won't allow anyone to harm our family.
Being completely thrown can make a person feel utterly defeated. Charles, lying on the ground and looked down upon by Daniel, must have felt a deep sense of embarrassment. Barbara rushed to Charles with a worried look, but he got up, saying, "I'm fine." However, the aggression he had shown earlier had vanished. Voices from outside could be heard. It seemed the neighbors had gathered, alerted by the shouting from our house. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and hurriedly left the house, their departure marked by their pitiful retreat. Their future, after such a humiliating exit, remained unknown. Relying on Christopher's income from soccer, Charles and Barbara had little in the way of qualifications or work experience, making it difficult for them to find decent employment at their age. 2 years later, Christopher successfully became an interpreter. His work took him to various places, keeping him busy. Daniel continued to diligently study and practice chess, striving to master the game. Both brothers excelled in their respective fields. As for me, with my grandchildren grown and independent, I started teaching at a children's chess club, aiming to nurture their interests. Having loved chess since childhood, I had once dreamed of becoming a professional player. Despite joining chess clubs in middle and high school and competing in numerous matches, I recognized my limitations and eventually lost faith in my own talent. Even though friends and family encouraged me, saying I had talent and should keep at it, I lost the ability to believe in myself. Having experienced the pain of not accepting my own immaturity, regretting giving up on my dreams, and feeling a tightness in my chest, I had a strong desire to convey something important to the children in my chess class. After all, I had successfully raised Daniel, an exceptional professional player. Although it's often challenging, I find fulfillment in guiding each child, focusing on their individual hearts and potential. Christopher and Daniel live harmoniously with me, sharing these values. I deeply respect Christopher and Daniel, each thriving and fulfilling their dreams. One day, after a long while, Christopher and Daniel offered to pick oranges in our garden. As I've gotten older, reaching for the high oranges has become more of a chore, so I was grateful for the help. Christopher stretched the pruning shears as high as he could, trying to gather all the oranges for my chess club students.
This is quite the tedious task,
I remarked with a smile, solving chess problems by the window. I remembered how I used to challenge Daniel with my own chess problems, but now, as a professional player, he would present me with puzzles and watch amused as I pondered over them.
This one's tough.
It's a joyful realization that Daniel, whom I taught chess, has far surpassed me in skill. Hearing laughter, I saw Christopher and Daniel gathering oranges with joy.
Grandma? What's up?
There's something I've always wondered about every year. Daniel pointed to an orange located at the very top of the tree. That branch is always out of reach with the pruning shears, so picking from it is forbidden. Shouldn't we pick all of them for your chess students? I stopped Christopher from fetching a ladder from the shed.
Leaving a few oranges on the tree keeps it from looking completely bare.
I chuckled.
Leave that one. It's meant to be left there. I used to look at the remaining oranges after Dad and Mom left us and wonder if I was like those unwanted fruits.
Daniel's face showed a hint of sadness. I remained silent, focusing on the chess problem.
Not just for oranges, but there's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree instead of picking them all.
Daniel came over to me and watched as I pondered over a chess problem he had created. His expression bore the same youthful look as it did back then.
There's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree as a token of gratitude and hope for future harvests.
Gratitude and hope.
Moreover, it's left as food for the birds to help them through the harsh winter. The last remaining orange isn't unwanted, it's actually the most special one.
Special.
I see, so that's how it was.
Daniel whispered softly, and I gently stroked his head. Daniel, who has grown quite a bit, doesn't try to escape from my hands and allows me to continue stroking him without resistance. Well, what to do now? This chess problem presented by such a dear grandchild. It's too difficult for me to understand at all. Maintaining my dignity as a respected chess figure in his eyes was crucial, yet finding the solution seemed impossible in the moment. As I pondered, stroking Daniel's head, I hoped for a way out of this predicament, wishing for more such special moments to continue indefinitely.